got you pregnant, you on purpose! You are mine now!
The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Gangnam penthouse, each droplet catching the neon glow of Seoul's nighttime skyline. Inside, the world had narrowed to sensation. Skin against skin, breath against breath, the silk sheets tangled beneath two bodies locked in desperate rhythm. Imani Cross's fingers gripped the black silk. Her body arched as Dae Jung-ri moved behind her with the controlled intensity that had become their signature. His large hands gripped her hips, bruising, possessive, as he drove into her with a force that blurred the line between pleasure and pain. The mirrors that lined his bedroom reflected their contrasts, her deep mahogany skin against his golden tan, her voluptuous curves against his lean muscle, her natural curls wild against the pillow, while his black hair remained perfectly styled despite their exertion. "Look at us," Dae Jung commanded in that accent that sent shivers down her spine, his voice rough with desire. "Look at what you do to me." Imani obeyed. She always obeyed in these moments, turning her head to watch their reflection. The sight was devastating. Her full lips parted in a silent gasp, her dark eyes heavy-lidded with pleasure, her body responding to him in ways that terrified her because they felt too real, too raw, too different from the performance she'd spent 2 years perfecting. This wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't supposed to actually feel anything. His hand slid from her hip to her stomach, splaying possessively across her belly, and that simple gesture shattered everything. Time seemed to stop. Her period, 3 weeks late, the nausea that had plagued her for the past week, blamed on bad street food, the tenderness in her breasts that she'd attributed to his rough play, the exhaustion that went deeper than long nights in his bed. Oh God. "What is it, Naesarang?" Dae Jung's voice cut through her panic, his movement slowing as he sensed the shift in her body. Imani's heart hammered against her ribs. She pulled away from him abruptly, scrambling off the bed with none of her usual grace. The loss of contact left her feeling cold despite the heated room. "Imani?" Confusion laced his tone now, that dangerous edge creeping in, the one that reminded her exactly who she was dealing with. "What's wrong?" But she was already moving, her naked body crossing the expansive bedroom toward the marble bathroom. Behind her, she heard him curse in Korean, heard the rustle of sheets as he moved to follow. The bathroom was a monument to excess, all Italian marble, gold fixtures, a soaking tub that could fit 4 people. Imani's hands shook as she tore through her designer toiletry bag, scattering expensive skincare products across the counter until her fingers closed around the small rectangular box she'd bought last week, just in case, just to confirm what her body was already screaming. The pregnancy test felt heavy in her trembling hands. Her plan had been perfect. Seduce Seoul's most powerful and dangerous man. Stop taking her birth control without telling him. Get pregnant. Document everything. The relationship, his business dealings, his admissions of criminal activity. Then blackmail him for enough money to disappear forever. Raise the child in comfort somewhere far from the life she'd been living. High-end escort turned blackmailer turned single mother. Simple, clean, profitable. Except somewhere between the seduction and now, Imani had committed the cardinal sin of her profession. She'd caught feelings. Real ones. The kind that made her chest ache when he was gone, that made her laugh genuinely at his dry humor, that made her crave his touch even when she wasn't working. She'd fallen in love with her mark, and that made everything so much worse. The bathroom door opened. Dae Jung stood in the doorway, all 6'2" of lethal grace, his lean, muscular body completely unself-conscious in its nakedness. The dragon and white tiger tattoo that covered his entire back was partially visible as he leaned against the doorframe, his dark eyes tracking her every movement. He was beautiful in the way dangerous things often are. Sharp jawline, intense eyes, perfect proportions that came from both genetics and the rigorous physical training required in his world. The small scars that marked his golden skin only added to the effect, each one a story of survival in Seoul's criminal underworld. "Talk to me," he said quietly, but there was steel underneath the softness. Imani's hands shook as she removed the test from its packaging. "I need a minute." "For what?" He pushed off the doorframe, moving into the bathroom with that predatory grace that had first attracted her to him. Then his eyes landed on the test in her hand, and everything changed. His expression didn't shift dramatically. Dae-jung-ri hadn't built an empire by being easy to read, but Imani had spent 6 months learning his micro-expressions. The slight widening of his eyes, the way his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, the stillness that came over him, like a tiger deciding whether to pounce or retreat. "I see," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "It might be nothing," Imani heard herself say, the lie tasting bitter on her tongue. "I'm probably just late because of stress, or do it." Not a request, a command. Her fingers fumbled with the test. She performed the necessary actions mechanically, her mind racing through scenarios, through exit strategies, through the implications of what she already knew would be positive. 3 minutes. The instructions said to wait 3 minutes. They stood in silence, Dae-jung leaning against the marble counter with his arms crossed over his sculpted chest, Imani sitting on the edge of the bathtub with her hands clasped between her knees. The rain continued its assault on the windows. Somewhere in the distance, Seoul's nightlife thrummed with energy and life, while Imani's world contracted to this moment, this bathroom, this man. When she finally looked at the test, the 2 pink lines seemed to glow in accusation. Pregnant. The word echoed in her mind like a death sentence and a promise all at once. She expected shock on Dae-jung's face when she held up the test. Expected anger, perhaps, or denial. Or at least the kind of masculine panic that came with unplanned fatherhood. Instead, he smiled. It was a slow, predatory smile that made her blood run cold and hot simultaneously. The kind of smile that reminded her exactly what he was beneath the expensive suits and cultured demeanor. A killer. A monster. A man who had built his empire on fear and blood and ruthless calculation. "Naesarang," he said softly, pushing off the counter and moving toward her with deliberate slowness. "Did you think I didn't know?" The world tilted. "Know what?" Her voice came out as barely a whisper. He took the test from her trembling fingers, studying it like a prize he'd won. "I stopped using condoms 5 weeks ago. Every time we fucked, I made sure to finish deep inside you." His eyes met hers, dark and bottomless. "You were so lost in pleasure you never noticed." Imani couldn't breathe. The bathroom seemed to shrink around her. You planned this?" "Of course." He set the test down on the counter with careful precision, then cupped her face with both hands. His touch was gentle, almost tender, which made it so much worse. "Your contract ends in 2 months. You were going to leave Seoul. Leave me." His thumb traced her full bottom lip with devastating slowness. "I couldn't allow that." "You had no right." She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened just enough to keep her still. "I have every right." His voice dropped to a whisper that was somehow more terrifying than shouting. "You're carrying my child now, Imani. You're mine, forever." The words hung in the air between them like a noose. Something inside Imani snapped. Years of performing, of pretending, of swallowing her rage and her fear, and her authentic self, all of it erupted in a single moment of pure, honest fury. She slapped him, hard. The sound cracked through the bathroom like a gunshot. Dae-jung's head snapped to the side from the force of the blow. For a moment, he didn't move. Didn't react. Then slowly, so slowly, he turned back to face her. A thin line of blood appeared on his perfect lower lip where her ring had caught him. "Feel better?" he asked, his voice deadly calm. "You trapped me." Imani's voice broke. "You manipulated me. You violated my trust. No more than you manipulated me." The words stopped her cold. Dae-jung reached past her, his still naked body close enough that she could feel his heat, and opened a drawer she hadn't known existed in the marble counter. He pulled out a small device that made her stomach drop, her recording device, the one she'd so carefully hidden in his office. "This," he said, holding it up between them, "is very sophisticated, professional grade, not something a business consultant would need." He set it down and pulled out his phone, swiping through screens with practiced ease. "And these," he turned the phone toward her, showing screenshots that made her want to vomit. Her burner phone texts, her offshore account transactions, photos of documents she'd photographed from his office over the months. Are quite the collection. Tell me, how much were you planning to blackmail me for? Imani's legs nearly gave out. She sat down hard on the edge of the tub, her mind reeling. How long have you known? Since the second date. He pocketed his phone, then crouched in front of her, bringing them eye to eye. I ran a background check after our first night together. Imagine my surprise when Imani Cross, business development consultant, has no digital footprint before 2 years ago. No college records, no LinkedIn, no Facebook photos from high school. Nothing. Her mouth went dry. Then why did I let you continue? He tilted his head, studying her face like she was a particularly interesting puzzle. Because I wanted to see how far you'd go, how long you'd play your little game. His hand slid to her stomach again, that same possessive gesture that had triggered her realization. And because I decided you were mine the moment I fucked you the first time, this baby just makes it official. You're insane, Imani breathed. Perhaps. He leaned in closer, his lips brushing her ear. But so are you. You stopped taking your birth control 6 weeks ago. I checked your pills. The room spun. He knew. He'd known everything. We both wanted this, Dae-jung continued, his breath hot against her neck. You wanted leverage. I wanted ownership. Now we both have what we planned for. He pulled back slightly, his dark eyes searching her face. The question is, what happens now? Imani's mind raced through possibilities, through escape routes, through the implications of everything crashing down around her. He'd known. From almost the beginning, he'd known she was running a con, and he'd let her continue, let her believe she was in control while he orchestrated everything. The nausea that rolled through her had nothing to do with pregnancy. I could still ruin you, she whispered, searching for any remaining power in this impossible situation. I have recordings, evidence. I could go to the authorities and— You could? Dae-jung nodded, standing to his full height and looking down at her with those bottomless dark eyes. And I could kill you right now, make it look like an accident, a tragic fall in the shower perhaps. Pregnant women are so vulnerable. He let the threat hang in the air for 3 heartbeats before continuing. But I won't. Do you know why? Imani shook her head, tears burning behind her eyes. Because I'm in love with you. The confession was delivered with the same matter-of-fact tone he might use to discuss the weather, which somehow made it more devastating. And you're in love with me. That's the problem neither of us planned for. The truth of his words hit like a physical blow. She wanted to deny it, to throw his assumption back in his face, to maintain the fiction that this had all been performance. But sitting there naked and pregnant and exposed in every possible way, Imani couldn't summon the energy to lie anymore. I hate you, she said instead, which was also true. I know. He reached down, pulled her to her feet with surprising gentleness. You can hate me and love me simultaneously. I certainly do both with you. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed on the counter. The sound was sharp and insistent, cutting through the tension like a blade. Dae-jung's expression shifted as he glanced at the screen, a shadow passing over his features that made Imani's already churning stomach clench tighter. Get dressed, he said, his voice suddenly all business. We have a problem. What kind of problem? The kind that means we need to have this discussion later. He was already moving, pulling on the black silk robe that hung near the door, his movements efficient and controlled. My brother is here. Your brother? Imani had heard Dae-jung mention Sung-ho exactly once in 6 months, and only in passing. Why is that a problem? Dae-jung's jaw tightened. That tell she'd learned meant he was deciding how much truth to share. Because he needs to tell me something, and based on the look on his face and the security camera, it's going to change everything. 10 minutes later, Imani stood in Dae-jung's oversized dress shirt and her own underwear, her natural curls still wild from their earlier activities, watching 2 men who looked similar enough to be brothers, but different enough to be distinct individuals. Sung-ho-ri was 2 inches shorter than Dae-jung, broader in the shoulders and chest, built like someone who lifted heavy things for pleasure rather than necessity. His face was more rugged, less refined, with that diagonal scar cutting across his right cheek, giving him a dangerous edge that didn't quite match the warmth in his lighter brown eyes. Where Dae-jung's hair was perfectly styled even after sex, Sung-ho's was cut military short, practical rather than fashionable. He stood in the penthouse living room, flanked by 2 bodyguards, all of them dripping rain onto the imported Italian marble. But his eyes weren't on his brother. They were fixed on Imani with an expression that made her stomach drop for entirely new reasons. Recognition, desire, pain. "Hyungnim," Sung-ho said quietly, using the formal address for elder brother. "We need to talk." "This isn't a good time," Dae-jung replied, positioning himself slightly in front of Imani in a gesture that was both protective and possessive. "Whatever this is about can wait until it's about her." Sung-ho's voice was steady, but his hands clenched at his sides. "I need to tell you something, before this goes any further." The air in the room crackled with tension. Imani felt her pulse quicken, a sick feeling of dread pooling in her gut, because she suddenly knew, with absolute certainty, what he was about to say. "Speak," Dae-jung commanded, and the single word carried enough weight to make both bodyguards shift uncomfortably. Sung-ho's eyes met Imani's for a long moment before he turned to his brother. "2 months ago, I met a woman at Club Azure. We spent one night together. I didn't get her full name. Didn't know anything about her except she was beautiful and seemed as lonely as I felt." He paused, his jaw working. "I didn't know who she was. Didn't know she was connected to you. Not until I saw her photo on your desk last week." The silence that followed was suffocating. Imani watched Dae-jung's profile, saw the muscle in his jaw jump, saw his fingers flex and curl into a fist at his side. When he spoke, his voice was so quiet it was almost inaudible. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I slept with her." Sung-ho pulled out his phone with a steady hand, despite the visible tension in his shoulders. "I'm saying I slept with Imani before I knew she was yours." He held up his phone, showing photos that made Imani's world tilt on its axis. Date stamped. 2 months ago, her and Sung-ho entering a hotel, her laughing at something he said, her hand on his arm, her body language showing clear interest. She remembered that night with sudden, horrible clarity. Dae-jung had canceled their plans, some emergency with his organization that he couldn't discuss. She'd been angry, hurt, feeling like just another appointment in his schedule. She'd gone to Club Azure alone, determined to prove to herself that she was still in control of her own life, that she wasn't actually falling for her mark. The man at the bar had been handsome and kind and surprisingly funny. They'd talked for hours. When he'd suggested going somewhere quieter, she'd said yes without asking his last name. She'd never seen him again, had written it off as a one-night mistake, a momentary lapse in her usually ironclad professional boundaries. "Is this true?" Dae-jung's question was directed at Imani, but he didn't turn to look at her. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I didn't know he was your brother. I didn't even know you had a brother until just now. How far along are you?" The question came from Dae-jung, his voice flat and emotionless in a way that was more terrifying than rage. "I don't know. Maybe 6 weeks? 8? The room seemed to hold its breath. Sung-ho's face had gone pale. The timing. The baby might not be mine. Dae-jung finished the thought, his voice hollow. Imani's hand moved instinctively to her stomach, her mind racing through dates and possibilities. She'd been with Sung-ho approximately 8 to 9 weeks ago. She'd been consistently intimate with Dae-jung throughout that entire period, but there had been that one stretch where he'd been away for nearly 2 weeks. "There's something else," she heard herself say, her voice sounding distant to her own ears. "If I'm far enough along, if the timing is really close, there's a possibility." Both men turned to look at her. "I've been reading about pregnancy," she continued, the words coming slowly as she processed the horrifying possibility. "There's something called heteropaternal superfecundation. If I ovulated twice and was with both of you within a short window..." She couldn't finish the sentence. Understanding dawned on Sung-ho's face first. Twins with different fathers. "That's not possible," Dae-jung said, but his tone suggested he knew it was. It's rare, Imani whispered. But it happens. If I'm carrying twins, and fraternal twins run in my family, they could potentially have different fathers. The silence that followed was absolute. Daejung moved first, turning to his brother with an expression Imani had never seen before. Raw pain mixed with fury, mixed with something that might have been betrayal. Get out. Hyungnim, get out. The roar shattered the quiet, making both bodyguards flinch. Get out before I kill you where you stand. Sung-ho held his ground for one more moment, his eyes finding Imani's. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I never meant for this to happen. Neither did I, she replied, and meant it. After Sung-ho and his men left, the penthouse felt cavernous and cold despite its luxury. Daejung stood with his back to Imani, staring out at the rain-soaked Seoul skyline, his shoulders rigid with tension. Say something, Imani finally whispered. When he turned to face her, his expression was carefully blank. You will stay here. You will not leave this penthouse, and you will figure out which baby, if there are two, is mine. Daejung, because if even one of them carries my blood, you're still mine, forever. He moved toward the bedroom door, then paused. I need to think. Don't try to leave. The door is locked from the outside, and my men have orders to keep you here. You can't just imprison me. I can. I am. He looked at her one last time, and the devastation in his eyes nearly broke her. You betrayed me with my own brother. Whether you knew it or not doesn't change what happened. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded like a cell door slamming shut. Imani sank onto the leather sofa, her hand on her stomach, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. She'd planned to trap one dangerous man with a pregnancy. Instead, she'd trapped herself between two. And somewhere in her body, one or possibly two lives were growing, each one a ticking time bomb that would bind her to this world forever. Her phone buzzed in the pocket of the discarded dress she'd worn to dinner. With shaking hands, she pulled it out, saw a text from an unknown number. Imani? Baby? Is that really you in Seoul? I've been looking for you for 6 months. I'm coming to get you. Marcus. The phone slipped from her numb fingers. Marcus, her psychotic ex-boyfriend from Los Angeles, the one she'd fled the country to escape. He'd found her. Imani stared at the text message until the screen went dark, her mind struggling to process this new nightmare layered on top of the existing ones. Marcus Turner, the man she'd run from. The man whose obsession had driven her across the Pacific Ocean to start a new life under a new identity. The man she'd hoped never to see again. Her fingers trembled as she picked up the phone, reading the message again, as if the words might have changed. They hadn't. He knew she was in Seoul. He was coming for her. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so terrifying. She'd fled one dangerous man only to fall into the arms of two others, and now the first was tracking her down like prey. Imani's other hand pressed against her stomach, still flat, showing no signs of the chaos growing inside, and she felt the walls closing in from every direction. Daejung's penthouse, once a symbol of luxury and success in her con, now felt exactly like what it was. A gilded cage. She needed to think, to plan, to find some way out of this impossible situation. But exhaustion crashed over her like a wave, the kind of bone-deep weariness that came from adrenaline crash and early pregnancy combined. Her body made the decision her mind couldn't, and she stumbled to the bedroom, crawling under the sheets that still smelled of Daejung's expensive cologne and their earlier passion. Sleep claimed her despite everything, pulling her under into dreams of running through Seoul's streets while 3 different men called her name, each one promising love and threatening death in the same breath. Dawn broke over Seoul with the kind of crystalline clarity that only came after heavy rain. Imani woke to find Daejung sitting in the chair beside the bed, still wearing the same silk robe from the night before, his eyes red-rimmed and fixed on her face. "How long have you been watching me?" she asked, her voice rough with sleep. "Since I came back 3 hours ago." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I couldn't sleep. Couldn't stop thinking about everything." Imani sat up slowly, pulling the sheet around her body. In the morning light, Dae-jung looked less like the controlled crime lord and more like a man who'd been gutted. The vulnerability in his expression made her chest ache. "I didn't know," she said again, needing him to believe it. "About your brother. I swear I didn't know." "I believe you." He rubbed his face with both hands, which somehow makes it worse. "If you'd known, if you'd done it to hurt me, I could hate you properly. But this," he gestured vaguely between them, "this is just cruel fate." "What happens now?" Dae-jung stood, moving to the windows that overlooked the city. "Now we confirm the pregnancy, find out how far along you are, determine if there are actually twins." His reflection in the glass was hollow. "And then we figure out which one is mine." "And if they're both Sung-ho's?" The question hung in the air like smoke. "They won't be," he said flatly. "I won't accept that reality." "You might not have a choice." He turned to face her, and the expression on his face made her blood run cold. "I always have a choice, Imani. The question is how far I'm willing to go to enforce it." Before she could respond, he moved to the closet and pulled out a designer dress, expensive, elegant, exactly her size. "Get dressed. Doctor's appointment in an hour." "I need to shower first." "Fine, but be quick." He headed for the door, then paused. "And Imani?" "Don't try anything stupid. I have men on every exit and Seoul is my city. There's nowhere you can run that I won't find you." After he left, Imani stood under the scalding shower spray and tried to formulate a plan. The Marcus text had been real. She'd checked 3 times to make sure it wasn't some fever dream, which meant she had multiple threats converging on her simultaneously. She needed leverage, information, some way to protect herself and the lives, growing inside her. Her hand moved to her stomach again, a gesture that was becoming automatic. Despite everything, despite the manipulation and lies and danger, some part of her wanted these babies, wanted the chance at motherhood that she'd thought she'd lost when she'd fled Los Angeles. But wanting and surviving were 2 different things. Dr. Yo Helen Cho's private clinic was located in an upscale medical building in Gangnam, the kind of place where discretion was as valuable as expertise. The waiting room was empty. Dae-jung had bought out her entire morning schedule, and the doctor herself was a woman in her early 50s with sharp eyes behind designer glasses and an air of professional competence that allowed no nonsense. "Mr. Ri," she greeted him with a slight bow, then turned to Imani with a warmer expression. "And you must be Ms. Cross. Please come in." The examination room was state-of-the-art, all gleaming equipment and soft lighting designed to soothe anxious patients. Imani changed into a hospital gown while Dr. Cho prepared the ultrasound machine, her movements efficient and practiced. "How long have you suspected pregnancy?" the doctor asked in perfect English as Imani settled onto the examination table. "I just found out last night." Dr. Cho's eyebrows rose slightly. "I see. And when was your last menstrual period?" Imani gave her the date, watching the doctor calculate in her head. "That would make you approximately 7 to 8 weeks along, assuming a regular cycle." She squeezed ultrasound gel onto Imani's still flat stomach. "Let's see what we can see." The wand pressed against her skin, cool and firm. On the monitor, grainy black and white images appeared, meaningless to Imani's untrained eye, but clearly significant to Dr. Cho, whose expression shifted to one of focused concentration. "Ah," the doctor said softly. "There we are." "What is it?" Dae-jung asked from his position against the wall. His arms crossed over his chest. "See here?" Dr. Cho pointed to the screen. "And here?" 2 distinct shapes, 2 tiny flickering heartbeats. "Twins," she confirmed, her voice professionally neutral. "Fraternal, from the looks of it, both developing normally for approximately 7 weeks gestation." The room seemed to lose oxygen. Imani stared at the screen, at the 2 small lives that had just become undeniably real. Tears burned behind her eyes, part joy, part terror, part something she couldn't name. Dae-jung's face had gone completely blank, his tell for extreme emotion rigidly controlled. "Can you determine paternity?" he asked, his voice flat. Dr. Cho's gaze flicked between them, her professional mask firmly in place despite the obviously unusual question. Not at this stage. Around 12 to 14 weeks, we can perform a non-invasive prenatal paternity test. It requires only a blood sample from the mother and the potential fathers. She paused. May I ask why this is necessary? Family medical history, Daijung lied smoothly. We need to know about potential genetic conditions. The doctor clearly didn't believe him, but she was too professional or too aware of who she was dealing with to push. I'll schedule you for another appointment in 5 weeks. In the meantime, Ms. Cross needs to start prenatal vitamins, avoid alcohol and smoking, and minimize stress. Imani almost laughed at that last instruction. Minimize stress. While carrying twins who might have different fathers, trapped between a crime lord and his brother, with a psychotic ex tracking her location. Sure, she'd get right on that. In the car afterward, Daijung's driver navigated Seoul's traffic while heavy silence filled the back seat. Imani stared out the window at the city passing by, a place that had felt exotic and exciting when she'd first arrived, full of opportunity and fresh starts. Now it felt like a trap closing tighter with every passing moment. 2 babies, Daejung finally said, his voice barely audible over the engine noise. 2 chances for one to be mine. Or 2 chances for neither to be yours, Imani replied quietly. His hand shot out, gripping her chin and turning her face toward him. The gentleness from earlier was gone, replaced by the ruthless man who commanded Seoul's underworld. If both babies are Sung-ho's, do you know what that means? What? It means I'll have to decide whether I love you enough to raise another man's children. My brother's children. His thumb traced her lower lip with devastating intimacy. And I honestly don't know if I'm capable of that kind of forgiveness. Then let me go, she whispered. Let me leave Seoul, raise them somewhere safe. No. The word was absolute. You're mine, Imani. Those babies, regardless of paternity, are mine by right of possession. You all belong to me now. That's not how biology works. Biology is irrelevant. What matters is power, and I have all of it. He released her chin, sitting back against the leather seat. We're not going back to the penthouse. Alarm spiked through her. Where are we going? Somewhere more secure. I have a compound outside the city. Private, fortified. No one gets in or out without my permission. A prison, you mean? Protection, he corrected. Someone's been asking questions about you. Someone from America. I need you somewhere I can guarantee your safety until I neutralize the threat. Marcus. He was already getting close enough for Dae-young's intelligence network to notice. What if I refuse? Imani asked, even though she already knew the answer. Daejung pulled out his phone, swiped to a photo, and held it up. Her grandmother's house in Chicago, the small, well-maintained bungalow where Imani had spent summers as a child, where the only person who'd ever truly loved her still lived. Your grandmother Rose is 73 years old, he said conversationally. Lives alone. Very predictable routine. Church on Sundays, grocery shopping on Wednesdays, book club every other Thursday. Ice water flooded Imani's veins. You wouldn't. I won't have to. As long as you cooperate. He pocketed the phone. You'll stay at the compound. You'll take care of yourself and those babies. And in 5 weeks we'll do the paternity test and figure out what happens next. And if I try to leave? His smile was cold and terrible. Then your grandmother has a very unfortunate accident and you spend the rest of your pregnancy in a locked room instead of a comfortable house. Your choice. Imani's hands clenched into fists on her lap, nails digging into her palms. Every instinct screamed at her to fight, to run, to do something other than submit to this, but the image of her grandmother, kind, gentle Rose who'd raised her after her parents died, held her captive more effectively than any chain. I hate you, she whispered. I know. Dae-young's hand found hers, his fingers lacing through hers with devastating tenderness. But you love me too. That's the tragedy of us. The worst part was that he was right. The compound sat an hour outside Seoul, nestled in the mountains where old money and new crime alike built their fortresses. As the car wound up the private road, Imani watched through tinted windows as civilization fell away, replaced by dense forest and high walls topped with security cameras. The main gate was manned by guards carrying weapons that made no pretense of subtlety. They waved Daijung's car through with crisp efficiency, and Imani caught glimpses of more security as they drove deeper into the property. Motion sensors, additional cameras, men patrolling with dogs. A prison dressed as paradise. The house itself was stunning, she had to admit. Traditional Korean architecture blended seamlessly with modern luxury, sweeping roof lines and wooden beams mixed with floor-to-ceiling windows and contemporary design. Gardens surrounded the structure, meticulously maintained and beautiful even in the gray morning light. "It's lovely," she said flatly, refusing to give him the satisfaction of genuine appreciation. "It belonged to my mother," Dae-jung replied, something softening in his voice. "Before she died, my father never came here after that. Said it reminded him too much of what he'd lost." He helped her from the car, his hand at her elbow both courteous and controlling. "I had it renovated last year, haven't spent much time here myself." A woman appeared at the entrance, young, pretty, dressed in simple but expensive clothes. She bowed deeply to Dae-jung, then offered Imani a warm smile that seemed genuine. "This is Ji-yeon," Dae-jung introduced. "She manages the household staff. Anything you need, ask her." "Welcome, Ms. Cross," Ji-yeon said in accented English. "I've prepared the main bedroom for you. Please let me know if you require anything to be more comfortable." The main bedroom was a suite larger than most apartments, with its own sitting area, massive bathroom, and a balcony that overlooked the mountains. Imani walked through it slowly, noting the bars on the windows disguised as decorative ironwork, the door that would undoubtedly lock from the outside, the security camera hidden in the crown molding. Beautiful. Comfortable. Completely inescapable. "How long?" she asked without turning around. Dae-jung stood in the doorway, watching her with those unreadable dark eyes. "As long as it takes to ensure your safety." "My safety." "Right." She finally faced him. "And what about my freedom, my choices, my life?" "Your life is here now, with me, carrying my children. You don't know they're yours." Something dangerous flashed across his face. 5 weeks, then we'll know for certain." He moved closer, crowding her personal space in that way he did, asserting dominance without touching. "Until then, you stay here. You rest. You take care of yourself and those babies. And if I refuse, if I try to leave, then I'll have Ji-yeon lock the door from outside and have your meals delivered. You'll have a comfortable prison instead of a comfortable home." His hand rose to cup her face, thumb stroking her cheek with devastating gentleness. "Don't make me do that, Imani. I want to trust you." She jerked away from his touch. "Trust? You're blackmailing me with my grandmother's life." "I'm protecting what's mine." No apology, no shame, just brutal honesty. "Get some rest. Doctor's orders. Minimal stress, remember?" After he left, Imani explored her cage more thoroughly. The closet was filled with designer maternity clothes in her exact size, all the tags still attached. The bathroom stocked with expensive prenatal vitamins, pregnancy-safe skincare products, everything she could possibly need. Someone had done extensive research, planned meticulously. Dae-jung had been preparing this prison for weeks. The realization made her sink onto the bed, hand pressed to her still flat stomach. He'd known, even before the pregnancy test, he'd known this was coming, had planned for it. Had arranged every detail of her captivity. A soft knock interrupted her spiral. "Ms. Cross?" Ji-yeon's voice came through the door. "I've brought lunch. May I come in?" The door wasn't locked. Yet. That was something. "Come in." Ji-yeon entered with a tray laden with food, traditional Korean dishes alongside Western options, everything beautifully presented. She set it on the table in the sitting area, then hesitated. "I know this must be difficult," she said quietly. "Being here, away from everything familiar." Imani studied the younger woman, searching for ulterior motives, for the catch. "How long have you worked for him?" 3 years, since I was 23. Ji-yeon arranged the dishes with careful precision. Mr. Ri saved my life. My family owed money to very dangerous people. He paid the debt, gave me this job, made sure my family was safe. So you're loyal to him? I'm grateful to him. Ji-yeon met her eyes. But I'm not blind. I see what this is. What he's doing to you. She glanced toward the door, lowered her voice. If you need anything, if you need help, I might know someone who could. Who could what? Dae-jung's voice from the doorway made them both jump. Ji-yeon's face went pale. I was just offering to help Ms. Cross get settled, sir, making sure she had everything she needed. Dae-jung moved into the room with that predatory grace, his eyes never leaving Ji-yeon's face. Is that all? Yes, sir. Good. He dismissed her with a slight gesture. Leave us. After Ji-yeon fled, Dae-jung turned to Imani with an expression that was half amused, half dangerous. Already trying to recruit allies? She was being nice. Something you might try. Nice. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Nice is for people who can afford weakness. I can't. He moved to the tray, picked up a piece of fruit, examined it. Eat. You need to maintain your strength. Stop telling me what to do. I'll stop when you start taking care of yourself. He set the fruit down, moved closer to where she sat on the bed. I need those babies healthy, Imani. Whatever else is between us, that's non-negotiable. Even if they're not yours? The question hung between them like a blade. Dae-jung's jaw tightened, that muscle jumping again. Even then, because they're inside you, and you're mine. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, and his entire demeanor shifted, tension flooding his body, his expression hardening into something cold and lethal. What is it? Imani asked, alarm spiking through her. Your past just caught up with you. He turned the phone to show her a surveillance photo, Marcus Turner standing outside the Gangnam penthouse, talking to the doorman. Who is he? Imani's blood turned to ice. My ex-boyfriend, from Los Angeles. And why is he here? Because I ran from him 2 years ago, because he was obsessive and dangerous, and I couldn't get away any other way. She stood, moved to the window, wrapped her arms around herself. His name is Marcus Turner, former military. He became unstable, possessive. When I tried to break up with him, he threatened to kill himself. Then he threatened to kill me. So I disappeared. And now he's found you. Apparently. Dae-jung made a call, spoke rapid Korean, his tone clipped and commanding. When he hung up, he looked at Imani with an expression she couldn't quite read. He's asking questions, showing your photo to people in the building. My men are watching him, but if he's military trained, he'll know how to evade surveillance. So what do? I eliminate threats to what's mine. Simple, brutal, honest. You can't just kill him. Why not? Genuine curiosity in the question. Because... Imani struggled for words that would resonate with a man like Dae-jung. Because it will bring attention. American citizen murdered in Seoul? That brings investigations, federal agents, complications you don't need. He considered this, head tilted slightly. Fair point. So I'll have him deported instead, quietly, efficiently. He won't stop. He'll just come back. Then I'll be less subtle next time. Dae-jung moved to the door. Stay here. Don't leave this room until I tell you it's safe. What are you going to do? What I always do. Protect what's mine by eliminating what threatens it. After he left, Imani sank onto the bed and finally let the tears come. Trapped between 3 dangerous men, one who'd manipulated her into pregnancy, one who'd accidentally complicated everything, and one who'd tracked her across the world out of sick obsession. Her hand found her stomach again, that automatic gesture of protection. I'm sorry, she whispered to the twins growing inside her. I'm so sorry I brought you into this mess. A soft knock made her look up. Ji-yeon stood in the doorway again, her expression carefully neutral, but her eyes showing something that might have been sympathy. Mr. Ri asked me to stay with you, to make sure you're not alone. She moved into the room, closed the door softly. But he didn't say I couldn't talk to you. Talk to me about what? Ji-yeon sat in the chair across from the bed, her posture perfect, her hands folded in her lap. About the fact that Mr. Sung-ho called me this morning, asked me to check on you when I could, to make sure you were being treated well. Imani's breath caught. Sung-ho? He's worried about you. About the babies. Ji-yeon's eyes met hers. He asked me to give you a message if I could do it safely. What message? That he's sorry. That he never meant for any of this to happen. And that if you need him, really need him, he'll find a way to help you. Even if it means betraying his brother. The words settled over Imani like a weighted blanket, equal parts comfort and complication, 3 dangerous men, 2 potential fathers, 1 impossible situation. And somewhere in Seoul, Marcus was getting closer. 3 days passed in the compound, each one bleeding into the next with surreal monotony. Imani woke to sunlight streaming through barred windows, ate meals prepared by staff she rarely saw, and spent hours staring at the mountains that surrounded her beautiful prison. Ji-yeon checked on her regularly, always professional, always careful, but Imani caught glimpses of something more in the younger woman's eyes, sympathy, perhaps, or recognition of shared captivity. The pregnancy made itself known in small, relentless ways, morning sickness that lasted all day, exhaustion that pulled her under without warning, her breasts growing tender and full, her body changing to accommodate the 2 lives growing inside her, reshaping itself for a future she couldn't control. At night, Dae-jung came to her. He never asked permission, never knocked, just appeared in her room after midnight, smelling of whiskey and expensive cologne, his eyes haunted by things she knew better than to ask about. Sometimes he just watched her sleep, sitting in the chair by the window like some dark guardian. Other times, he crawled into bed beside her, pulling her against his body with desperate possessiveness. And sometimes, most dangerously, he touched her with a tenderness that broke something inside her chest. "Tell me about your grandmother," he said on the 3rd night, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her stomach through the silk nightgown Ji-yeon had provided. Imani tensed. "Why?" "Because I want to know you. Beyond the con, beyond the games we've been playing." His breath was warm against her neck. "Tell me something real." She shouldn't give him anything authentic, anything he could use as leverage, but exhaustion and hormones and the strange intimacy of darkness made her honest. "Her name is Rose Washington. She raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 8. Imani's hand covered his on her stomach. "She worked 3 jobs to keep me fed and clothed and in good schools. Never complained. Never made me feel like a burden. She sounds strong. She is. Strongest person I've ever known." Tears pricked her eyes. "Which is why threatening her is so effective. She's the only person in the world I actually love without complication." Dae-jung was quiet for a long moment. "I won't hurt her." "As long as you don't give me reason to." "That's not the reassurance you think it is." His laugh was soft and bitter. "I know. But it's the only one I can give." He shifted, propping himself up on one elbow to look down at her. In the moonlight filtering through the windows, his features were softer, more vulnerable. "My mother's name was Lee Mi-sun. She was a piano teacher, beautiful, kind, everything my father wasn't." Imani turned to face him, surprised by the offering of personal history. "She tried to leave him when I was 12, took me and Sung-ho in the middle of the night, drove toward the airport." His jaw tightened. "She never made it. The car went off a bridge, officially ruled an accident. But it wasn't. My father had her brakes cut. I figured it out years later when I took over his operations. Found the payment records." His fingers moved to trace her face, thumb brushing her full lips. "That's when I understood. Love in my world is possession. It's control. It's making sure what's yours can never leave, even if it destroys them." "That's not love," Imani whispered. "That's ownership." "What's the difference?" He leaned down, kissed her with devastating gentleness. "You're mine, Imani. These babies are mine. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you, even if it makes you hate me." She should push him away, should maintain the walls between them. Instead, she pulled him closer, kissing him back with all the complicated emotions churning inside her, anger and fear, and that treacherous, terrible love that refused to die despite everything. Their lovemaking that night was slow and intense, his hands worshipping her changing body with reverent attention. He was careful with her, mindful of the pregnancy in ways that made her chest ache. And when she came apart beneath him, gasping his name, some part of her wondered if she'd ever truly escape this man, if she even wanted to anymore. The fourth morning brought Sung-ho. Imani was in the garden, enjoying the brief freedom of supervised outdoor time, when he appeared at the compound gate. The guards let him through after a tense phone call to Dae-jung, and Sung-ho approached her with the caution of someone navigating a minefield. "Can we talk?" he asked, keeping a respectful distance. Imani glanced at Kyung-soo, the massive bodyguard who shadowed her everywhere. He nodded slightly, moving far enough away to give them privacy, but close enough to intervene if necessary. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "Your brother? I know. Believe me, I know." Sung-ho ran a hand through his short hair, that scar on his cheek standing out in the sunlight. "But I needed to see you, to make sure you were okay. The babies are fine, growing, apparently making me nauseous at all hours." She wrapped her arms around herself. "Why are you really here, Sung-ho?" He was quiet for a moment, his lighter brown eyes searching her face. Where Dae-jung's gaze was intense and consuming, Sung-ho's was warmer, more open. "Because I can't stop thinking about that night, about you. And now there's a chance that one of those babies is mine, and I—" He stopped, started again. "I need to know if there's any part of you that wants me involved, beyond just biology." The question caught her off guard with its honesty. "I don't know," Imani admitted. "Everything is so complicated. Your brother has me trapped here. My psychotic ex is hunting me. I'm pregnant with twins who might have different fathers. I can barely process what I feel from one moment to the next." "But you feel something." Not a question. She met his eyes. "Yes, I feel something. You were kind to me that night. Funny. Real. The first man in years who didn't feel like a transaction or a target." Her hand moved to her stomach. "If one of these babies is yours, they deserve to know their father, but I don't know how that works when your brother is obsessed with you," Sung-ho finished. "I know. He's always been like this with things he wants, single-minded, ruthless. He'll never let you go willingly." "Then what do you suggest?" He stepped closer, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "I suggest you remember that you have options, that I meant what I said through Ji-yeon. If you need help, real help, I'll find a way, even if it means going against my brother." "He'll kill you." "Maybe." Sung-ho's smile was sad, but some things are worth dying for, and those babies, even if only one is mine, they're innocent. They deserve better than being pawns in our family's dysfunction. Before Imani could respond, a commotion erupted at the compound gate, shouting in Korean, the sound of an engine, guards drawing weapons. Kyung-soo was instantly at her side, his massive frame blocking her body. "Inside, now." "What's happening?" Imani demanded, but he was already herding her toward the house, Sung-ho flanking her other side. Through the chaos, she caught a glimpse of a man at the gate. Tall, light-skinned black, military posture, hazel eyes scanning the compound with professional efficiency. Marcus. He'd found her. Their eyes met across the distance for one terrible moment. The recognition on his face was immediate and devastating. Triumph mixed with rage, mixed with something that might have been relief. "Imani!" His shout carried over the noise. "Baby, I'm here! I'm going to get you out!" Then Dae-jung was there, appearing from nowhere with cold fury radiating off him like heat. He spoke rapid Korean to his men, gesturing sharply. Guards moved to physically remove Marcus from the property, their weapons raised but not yet firing. Marcus fought back with military precision, taking down 2 guards before being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Even restrained, his eyes never left Imani's face. "I love you!" he screamed as they dragged him away. "I never stopped. I'll come back for you. I'll always come back." Then he was gone, hauled into a waiting vehicle and driven away. Silence fell over the compound like a shroud. Dae-jung turned to Imani, his expression carefully blank, in that way that meant he was processing extreme emotion. Inside, all of you. Now. In the main house's living room, the three of them stood in tense formation. Imani in the center, Dae-jung and Sung-ho on either side like warring angels. How did he find this location? Dae-jung demanded, his voice deadly quiet. I don't know, Imani said truthfully. I haven't contacted anyone. I don't even have my phone anymore. You took it. Then someone told him. Dae-jung's eyes cut to his brother. Someone who knew she was here. Sung-ho's jaw tightened. You think I led him here? To endanger her and the babies? I think you'd do almost anything to play the hero in her eyes. That's not enough! Imani's shout startled them both into silence. This isn't helping. Marcus is resourceful. He was special forces. He probably tracked Dae-jung's movements, did surveillance, figured it out on his own. Who is he? Dae-jung asked. Really? Beyond psychotic X? Imani sank onto the sofa, suddenly exhausted. Marcus Turner. We met 4 years ago in Los Angeles. He was charming at first, protective, loving. Then it became obsessive. He tracked my phone, followed me everywhere, got violent when other men talked to me. She looked up at both brothers. When I tried to leave him, he threatened to kill himself. Then he threatened to kill me. Then he threatened to kill anyone who tried to help me. So you ran, Sung-ho said quietly. I ran. Changed my name, moved across the world, became someone else entirely. Her laugh was bitter. And now look where I am, trapped by different men but trapped nonetheless. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Dae-jung moved first, kneeling in front of her, his hands gripping her knees. I'll handle him, permanently this time. You can't just kill an American citizen. Watch me. He stood, pulled out his phone. He threatened what's mine. That's a death sentence in my world. Wait. Sung-ho's voice stopped him. Think about this strategically. If an American dies here, especially one with military connections, it brings federal attention, investigations, the kind of scrutiny even you can't control. Dae-jung's jaw worked. He knew his brother was right. So what do you suggest? He asked coldly. Let me talk to him, Imani said, the idea forming even as she spoke it. Let me explain that I'm here willingly, that he needs to move on. Both men turned to stare at her like she'd grown a second head. Absolutely not, Dae-jung said. It's the only way, she insisted. He's obsessed with saving me. If I tell him I don't need saving, maybe he'll leave. And if he doesn't? Then you'll have tried the peaceful option first. Makes the violent option more justifiable later. Dae-jung studied her face, searching for ulterior motives. You think you can convince him to leave? I think it's worth trying, unless you want federal agents crawling all over your operations. He was silent for a long moment. Then, fine. But it happens here. Under my supervision. With my men present, and if he tries anything, you'll kill him. I know. Imani stood, moving to the window that overlooked the mountains. When? Tomorrow. I'll have him brought back here. Dae-jung moved beside her, his reflection joining hers in the glass. But understand this, Imani. If this is some kind of escape attempt, if you're planning to leave with him, I'm 7 weeks pregnant with twins. Where exactly would I run to? His hand found the small of her back, possessive and warm. Nowhere, because you're mine, forever. As he walked away to make arrangements, Sung-ho approached quietly. Are you sure about this? He asked. No, she admitted. But what choice do I have? There's always a choice. She turned to face him. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, I'm trapped between 3 men who all think they own me. The only variable is which cage I choose to die in. The words were harsh, but true. And tomorrow, she'd face the first man who'd ever made her run. The night before Marcus's scheduled visit, sleep eluded Imani completely. She lay in the massive bed, hand on her stomach, feeling the first subtle changes in her body that signaled the twins' presence. Her breasts felt fuller, heavier. Her abdomen had the slightest curve that only she would notice. The nausea came in waves, unpredictable and relentless. 2 lives, 2 possible fathers, 1 impossible situation. The door opened without warning, Daejung's preferred method of entry, that casual violation of privacy that reminded her constantly who held the power. He stood silhouetted in the doorway, still dressed in the expensive suit from whatever business had kept him away all evening. Even in the darkness, she could feel the intensity of his gaze. "Can't sleep?" he asked, closing the door softly behind him. "Would you, in my position?" He moved to the bed with that fluid grace, sitting on the edge without invitation. "Probably not." His hand found her face in the darkness, thumb stroking her cheek. "Are you planning something? Some elaborate escape using him as cover?" "No." The truth, surprisingly. "I'm planning to convince a man I once cared about that I don't need saving, that I'm here by choice." "Are you?" The question was soft, dangerous. "Here by choice?" Imani turned her head to look at him, his features barely visible in the moonlight filtering through the windows. "Does it matter? You'll keep me here regardless of my answer." "It matters to me." His voice carried an edge of something that might have been vulnerability in a different man. "I need to know if the woman carrying my children hates me enough to run the moment she gets the chance." "I don't know what I feel anymore," she admitted. "Hate, love, fear, desire, it's all mixed together until I can't tell which is which." Daejung was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, began unbuttoning his shirt with deliberate slowness. "Move over." I'm not asking for sex. I'm asking to hold you." The shirt fell to the floor, revealing the dragon and tiger tattoo that covered his back, the lean muscles that spoke of disciplined violence. "Let me hold you tonight, before tomorrow's chaos." She should refuse, should maintain boundaries. Instead, she shifted, making room for him in the bed. He slid under the covers, still wearing his dress pants, pulling her back against his chest with possessive tenderness. His hand splayed across her stomach, over the place where 2 lives grew in impossible proximity. "If they're both Sung-Ho's," he said quietly into her hair, "I'll still claim them, raise them as mine, love them because they're part of you." The confession made her chest ache. "You can't just decide biology doesn't matter. I can decide that what matters is you, and them, and us." His lips brushed her temple. "I've spent my entire life taking what I want through force. But with you, I want you to want to stay. Want me. Choose this." "How can I choose when you're threatening my grandmother, when you've locked me in a compound? When you've taken away every option except submission?" "I know." His arms tightened around her. "I know it's fucked up. I know I'm doing everything wrong. But I don't know how else to be. This is the only language I speak. Control, possession, force." "Then learn a new language," she whispered, "before you destroy everything you're trying to keep." He didn't respond, just held her tighter, and eventually exhaustion pulled her under into fitful sleep. Morning came too quickly, accompanied by violent nausea that sent Imani rushing to the bathroom. She knelt on the cold marble, emptying her stomach while her body reminded her of its changing priorities. Daejung appeared in the doorway, watching with an expression that mixed concern with helplessness. "Should I call the doctor?" he asked. "It's normal," Imani managed between heaves. "Morning sickness, except it's all-day sickness with twins." He disappeared, returned moments later with a cold washcloth and a glass of water. The gesture was so unexpectedly caring that it made her want to cry. "Thank you," she said quietly, accepting both. "They're my children. Taking care of their mother is taking care of them." He crouched beside her, brushing her wild curls back from her face. "Are you sure you're up for this today? Seeing him?" "I have to be." She stood on shaky legs, moving to the sink to rinse her mouth. The longer Marcus is in Seoul looking for me, the more dangerous it gets for everyone. I could just kill him. We've been over this. I know. Doesn't mean I like the alternative. Dae-jung stood, moved behind her, his reflection joining hers in the mirror. His hands settled on her shoulders. Possessive even in comfort. He touches you. He dies. He threatens you. He dies. He so much as looks at you wrong. He dies. I understand. Imani met his eyes in the mirror. But let me try this my way first. They brought Marcus to the compound at noon, hands zip-tied behind his back, flanked by 4 armed guards. Kyung-soo led him into the main house's formal sitting room where Imani waited, Dae-jung standing against the wall like a dark promise of violence. Marcus looked exactly as she remembered, tall and lean, his hazel eyes striking against his light brown skin, his military bearing evident, even restrained. But there was something new in his expression now, something desperate and wild that confirmed her worst fears about his mental state. Imani. Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer and a curse. Baby, what have they done to you? Nothing I didn't allow, she said carefully, staying seated as the guards forced him into a chair across from her. Marcus, you need to listen to me. I've been looking for you for 18 months, he interrupted, his voice cracking. 18 months of tracking every lead, every hint, every possibility. Do you have any idea what it did to me when you disappeared? When you just vanished like I meant nothing? You were scaring me, she said quietly. The threats, the violence, the obsession. I had to leave. I was protecting you. His voice rose, making the guards shift. You don't understand the world we live in, the dangers out there. I was keeping you safe. You were keeping me prisoner, just like... She stopped herself, but Marcus's eyes sharpened. Just like him? He jerked his head toward Dae-jung. Who is he? What does he have on you? Dae-jung spoke for the first time, his accented English carrying deadly calm. I'm the father of her children, the man she's chosen to be with, and you're the past she's moved beyond. Marcus's face went dangerously still. Children? Imani's hand moved to her stomach before she could stop it. The gesture was unconscious, protective, and it told Marcus everything. You're pregnant. Not a question, a statement filled with barely controlled rage. He got you pregnant. I'm 7 weeks along, she confirmed, with twins, and I'm staying here with him by choice. That's a lie. Marcus leaned forward despite the guard's warning movements. You wouldn't choose this. Choose him. He's got you brainwashed or threatened or... He's got me in love with him, Imani said. And the words surprised her with their truth. It's complicated and fucked up and probably unhealthy, but it's real, and I'm not leaving. The devastation that crossed Marcus's face was terrible to witness. You love him? After everything we had? Everything I did for you? What you did to me, she corrected gently. Marcus, what we had was toxic. You know that. Deep down, you know we were destroying each other. We could have fixed it. If you'd just stayed, talked to me, given me another chance. I gave you 5 chances. You hit me on the 3rd one. The words fell like stones into water. Don't pretend you forgot. Don't pretend it wasn't a pattern. Marcus's face flushed with shame and anger. That was one time. I apologized. I promised it wouldn't happen again. It happened twice more before I left. She stood, moving closer despite Dae-jung's warning sound. Marcus, I need you to hear me. Really hear me. I'm not the woman you loved anymore. I'm someone different. And I'm building a life here. Messy and complicated, but mine. You need to let me go. I can't. His voice broke. I've spent 2 years looking for you. 2 years planning how I'd save you, how we'd start over. I can't just walk away. You have to. She crouched in front of him, meeting his hazel eyes directly. Because if you don't, he'll kill you. And I'll let him. These babies need protection, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep them safe, even if it means watching you die. The words were harsh but necessary. Marcus needed to understand there was no version of this where they ended up together. He studied her face for a long moment, searching for the woman he remembered. You really love him? Yes. And the babies are really his? She hesitated, and that hesitation told him everything. They're not, are they? Understanding dawned in his expression. Or you don't know. There's someone else. It's complicated, Imani said. Marcus laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. Of course it is. You always did make everything complicated. He looked past her to Dae-jung. You think you've won? You think keeping her locked up in your fortress makes her yours? It does, Dae-jung replied simply. Until she finds a way to leave. Until she realizes she's trading one cage for another. Marcus's eyes returned to Imani. I know you, baby. Better than you know yourself. You'll run, eventually. It's what you do when things get too real. The accuracy of his assessment stung. Maybe, Imani admitted. But that's my choice to make, not yours. Not anymore. Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then, quietly, if I leave Seoul, if I go back to the States and never contact you again, will you promise me one thing? What? If you ever need help, real help, if you ever need someone to get you out, you'll find a way to reach me, and I'll come, no questions asked. It was a terrible idea, dangerous for everyone involved, but looking into his hazel eyes, seeing the genuine concern beneath the obsession, Imani found herself nodding. Okay. That's not acceptable, Dae-jung said, moving forward. It's the deal, Marcus replied, his voice steady despite his restraints. I walk away cleanly. I don't cause problems for your operations. I don't contact American authorities. But she gets one lifeline. One way out if she decides she needs it. The room held its breath. Finally, Dae-jung nodded once. Agreed. But if you ever use it, if she ever calls you, I'll hunt you both to the ends of the earth. Fair enough. Marcus looked at Imani one last time. I hope you find whatever you're looking for, baby. I hope these babies are born healthy. And I hope he treats you better than I did. He doesn't, she said honestly, but I'm choosing him anyway. As the guards escorted Marcus out, Imani felt something inside her chest crack and shift. The past she'd been running from was finally behind her. Now she just had to survive the present. And in 5 weeks, face whatever truth the paternity test revealed. Dae-jung's hand found hers, lacing their fingers together. That was harder than I expected, she admitted. You did well. He pulled her against his chest. And now he's gone. One less threat to deal with. But as Imani stood in his arms, she couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus's final words had been a warning, not a farewell. Some cages were just better decorated than others, and she was about to find out just how expensive hers would be. The days after Marcus's departure passed in a strange limbo. Imani found herself settling into the compound's rhythms, despite every instinct telling her not to get comfortable. Her body continued its transformation. The morning sickness intensified, her clothes grew tighter around the waist, and exhaustion became her constant companion. Dr. Cho visited weekly, monitoring the twins' development with professional efficiency. Each ultrasound showed 2 healthy heartbeats. 2 growing lives that remained blissfully unaware of the chaos surrounding their conception. Everything looks excellent, the doctor said during the 4th week's visit, wiping gel from Imani's small but visible bump. Your blood pressure is slightly elevated, which we'll watch, but otherwise you're progressing normally. When can we do the paternity test? Dae-jung asked from his position against the wall, arms crossed. Next week. At 12 weeks, we can do the non-invasive prenatal test with just a blood draw. Dr. Cho's eyes moved between them, her expression carefully neutral. You understand that with twins, if they have different fathers, we'll be able to identify which baby belongs to which man. That's the point, Dae-jung replied. After the doctor left, Imani stood at the bedroom window, watching autumn colors paint the mountains in shades of rust and gold. Her hand rested on her bump, a gesture that had become automatic. What happens after? She asked, without turning around. After we know? Dae-jung moved behind her, his reflection joining hers in the glass. That depends on the results. If they're both Sung-ho's? His jaw tightened in the reflection. Then we figure it out. Together. You keep saying that, but you haven't told me what figuring it out actually means. She turned to face him. Will you let me go? Let him raise his children? No. Simple. Absolute. You're mine, Imani. The babies are mine by right of claiming you. Biology is just details. That's insane. Perhaps. He cupped her face with both hands. But it's the truth. I've never wanted anything the way I want you. Never needed to possess something so completely. These babies, whether they're biologically mine or not, they're part of you, which makes them mine. The possessive madness in his words should have terrified her. Instead, it ignited something dark and complicated in her chest, a twisted validation that she mattered enough to inspire this level of obsession. And Sung-ho? She asked. What happens to him in this scenario? He's my brother. That complicates things. Dae-jung's thumbs stroked her cheeks. But if he tries to take you from me, brother or not, I'll destroy him. Before Imani could respond, a knock interrupted them. Ji-yeon stood in the doorway, her expression troubled. Mr. Ri, there's someone here to see Ms. Cross. A woman. She says she's a friend. Dae-jung's eyes narrowed. What woman? She gave her name as Maya Chen. Said she flew in from Los Angeles when she couldn't reach Ms. Cross. Imani's stomach dropped. Maya, her friend from before Seoul, one of the few people who knew her real identity before she'd reinvented herself. They'd worked together at the same escort agency, covered for each other, shared secrets. If Maya was here, it meant Imani's disappearance had raised enough alarm that her friend had tracked her across the world. I didn't know you had friends in Los Angeles, Dae-jung said carefully, his tone suggesting this was a test. I have a life you don't know everything about, Imani replied, despite all your research. His smile was cold. We'll see about that. I'll have her brought in. Maya Chen looked exactly as Imani remembered, petite, beautiful in that effortless way, her black hair cut in a sharp bob. Designer clothes that spoke of success, but when her eyes landed on Imani, shock flashed across her features. Jesus Christ, Imani. Maya crossed the room in 3 quick steps, her gaze taking in the visible pregnancy bump, the luxurious compound, Dae-jung's imposing presence. What the hell is going on? It's complicated, Imani said, suddenly aware of how this must look, her trapped in a compound, visibly pregnant, guarded by dangerous men. Complicated? Maya's voice rose. You disappear for 2 months without a word. Your phone goes dark. Your email bounces back. I had to hire a private investigator to track you to Seoul, and even then all I got was vague locations until I saw you on security footage entering this property. You had me followed? Dae-jung's voice cut like a blade. Maya turned to face him, her chin raised despite his obvious menace. Who are you? Her captor? Her client? What? I'm the father of her children, he replied smoothly. And the man who's going to know exactly who you are and why you're really here before you leave this compound. I'm here because my friend disappeared off the face of the earth and I was worried she was dead. Maya's fear was giving way to anger. We had a pact, Imani. If either of us went dark for more than 6 weeks without check-in, the other would come looking. You're 3 weeks overdue. The detail was something Imani had forgotten, a safety measure they'd established years ago when the escort work had occasionally brought dangerous clients. I'm fine, Imani said, moving between them. I'm sorry I worried you. Things just happened faster than I expected. Maya's eyes tracked to her bump, then back to her face. You're pregnant. You're living in what looks like a fortress, and there's a very dangerous-looking man claiming ownership of you. She grabbed Imani's arm, lowered her voice. Blink twice if you need help getting out. Despite everything, Imani almost laughed. It's not like that. Then what is it like? How did she explain this? How did she put into words the complicated mess of manipulation, pregnancy, love, and captivity that had become her life? I'm staying here by choice, she said finally. It's complicated and probably unhealthy and definitely not what I planned, but it's what I'm choosing. Choice? Maya's tone was skeptical. She'd seen too many women claim they were staying by choice while sporting bruises and fear in their eyes. Imani, I know our work sometimes blurs lines, but this is different, Imani finished. I know it looks bad, But I'm okay. The babies are okay. I'm being taken care of. Taken care of or kept? Maya's eyes cut to Dae-jung. Because there's a difference. Both, Imani admitted. But I need you to trust me. I'm making the best choices I can with the options I have. Maya was silent for a long moment, studying her face with the keen observation of someone who'd learned to read clients and danger with equal skill. Finally, she pulled a business card from her purse and pressed it into Imani's hand. My hotel, my room number. My flight doesn't leave for 3 days. She glanced at Dae-jung. If she wants to meet me for coffee, lunch, whatever, you going to allow that? She's not a prisoner, Dae-jung said, which was technically true even if it felt like a lie. But she goes nowhere without security. Fine, bring your security. Maya's eyes returned to Imani. I just need to see you outside these walls, need to know you're really choosing this and not just saying what he wants to hear. After Maya left, the compound felt smaller somehow, the walls pressing closer. She thinks I'm holding you captive, Dae-jung observed. Aren't you? You're free to leave anytime you want. Except my grandmother's life is your leverage. So not really free. Imani sank onto the sofa suddenly exhausted. But Maya doesn't know about that. She just sees pregnant friend plus controlling man equals danger. Do you want to meet her? The question seemed to cost him something. Tomorrow, somewhere public, with my men watching? Imani looked at him sharply. This was a test. He was offering her a chance to prove she wasn't planning escape, wasn't going to use Maya as rescue. Yes, she said. I want to see my friend. Then you will. He moved to the door, paused. But Imani? If this is some kind of setup, if you're planning something with her. I know. My grandmother, your men, the cage gets smaller. She met his eyes. I understand the rules of this game. After he left, Imani pulled out her phone, the new one Dae-jung had given her, monitored and controlled, and stared at Maya's card. Her friend had flown across the world looking for her, had broken their safety protocol because she cared. And Imani was about to meet her and explain that yes, she was choosing to stay with a man who'd manipulated her into pregnancy, who kept her in a compound, who threatened her family. The truth was going to sound insane, because it was insane, but it was also her reality now. That night, Sung-ho appeared at the compound, unusual, since his brother rarely allowed him access, but when Ji-yeon brought him to Imani's room, his expression was urgent. We need to talk, he said quietly, about next week's test. What about it? He glanced at the door, lowered his voice further. I need to know. If one of them is mine, do you want me to fight for custody? Do you want me to help you leave? The question hung between them, heavy with implications. I don't know, Imani admitted. I don't know what I want anymore. Everything is so tangled. Untangle it. He moved closer, his lighter brown eyes searching her face. In a perfect world, where you could choose freely without threats or manipulation, what would you want? Imani closed her eyes, tried to imagine that impossible scenario. I'd want both fathers involved. I'd want to raise these babies with love instead of possession. I'd want freedom, Sung-ho finished. You'd want freedom. Yes. He pulled something from his pocket, a small phone, different from the monitored one Dae-jung had provided. This is untraceable. It has one number programmed in, mine. If you ever need help, real help, use it. Your brother will kill you if he finds out you gave me this. I know. His smile was sad. But those babies might be mine. And they deserve a mother who has choices, not chains. After he left, Imani stared at the burner phone in her hand. 2 phones, 2 potential fathers, 2 versions of captivity. And in 5 days, a test that would determine which cage she'd occupy permanently. Outside, the autumn wind picked up, rattling the barred windows like an omen. The coffee shop Maya chose was in Itaewon, Seoul's international district, crowded enough to feel public, upscale enough to feel safe. Imani sat across from her friend, Kyung-soo, and 2 other guards stationed at nearby tables, their presence unmistakable. So, Maya said, stirring her latte with deliberate slowness, tell me the truth, all of it. Imani did. Not everything. She couldn't risk details that might endanger her grandmother, but enough. The initial con, falling for Dae-jung, the pregnancy manipulation from both sides, Sung-ho, the twins, the impossible situation she'd trapped herself in. Maya listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from shock to concern to something that looked like reluctant understanding. "You really love him," she said finally. Not a question. "I really do. Both of them, in different ways, which makes everything worse. And the babies? Could belong to either brother, we find out in 3 days." Imani's hand moved to her bump, now visible even under the loose sweater she wore. "The test will tell us which baby has which father's DNA." Maya was quiet for a long moment, processing. "What do you need from me?" The question surprised Imani. "What?" "I flew here to rescue you if necessary, but you're telling me you're choosing this life, these men, this situation." Maya leaned forward. "So, what do you need?" "Because I'm not leaving Seoul until I know you have everything you need to survive this." Tears burned behind Imani's eyes. "I need you to check on my grandmother. Make sure she's safe. Don't tell her where I am or what's happening, just make sure she's okay." "Done. What else?" "I need—" Imani struggled to articulate the formless dread that had been building. "I need someone on the outside who knows my situation, someone who can help if everything goes sideways." Maya pulled out her phone, showed Imani a contact. "This is my lawyer, best in Los Angeles, specializes in international family law. If you ever need to fight for custody, establish paternity rights, anything, she's who you call." "I can't pay." "Already taken care of. I've got her on retainer for you." Maya's smile was fierce and protective. "You're my friend, Imani. I'm not letting you face this alone, even if you're choosing to stay." The weight that had been pressing on Imani's chest eased slightly. She wasn't completely isolated, wasn't completely trapped. "Thank you," she whispered. "Just promise me one thing." Maya's hand covered hers. "If it gets bad, really bad, you'll find a way out. You'll call me, call the lawyer, call someone. Don't let love trap you into dying there. I promise." As they left the cafe, Imani noticed Kyung-soo speaking urgently into his phone, his expression darkening. Something was wrong. "What is it?" she asked. "We need to return to the compound. Now." His massive hand guided her toward the waiting car with unusual urgency. "Why? What happened?" "Not here." He practically shoved her into the vehicle, the other guards flanking them with weapons barely concealed. "We've been compromised." The drive back felt endless, tension radiating from every guard. When they finally reached the compound, Dae-jung was waiting at the entrance, his expression carved from ice. "Inside," he commanded. "Both of you." In the main house, Sung-ho was already there, his face grim. Between the two brothers stood Ji-yeon, tears streaming down her face, her hands bound behind her back. "What's going on?" Imani demanded. Dae-jung pulled out his phone, played a recording. Ji-yeon's voice, speaking Korean, but the tone was clear even without translation. She was reporting information, giving updates on Imani's location, her routines, her vulnerabilities. "She's been feeding information to an outside source," Dae-jung said, his voice deadly calm. "Someone who's been paying very well for details about your movements." "Who?" Imani asked, though dread already pooled in her stomach. "We're still determining that. But whoever it is, they know about the pregnancy, about the twins, about the paternity test scheduled for this week." His eyes cut to Ji-yeon. "Tell her what you told me." Ji-yeon's voice shook. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. He said he just wanted to know you were safe, that he was your friend. He paid so much money and my family needed—" "Who?" Imani moved closer, her heart hammering. "Who paid you?" "The American man, Marcus Turner." The world tilted. Marcus hadn't left Seoul, hadn't gone back to the States like he'd promised. He'd been watching, waiting, gathering information through Ji-yeon. "There's more," Sung-ho said quietly. "Show her the rest." Dae-jung swiped to another recording. This one was in English, Marcus's voice clear and chilling. When she goes for the paternity test, that's when we move. She'll be outside the compound in transit. Vulnerable. I'll have my team extract her while your guards are occupied with the clinic's security. Once I have her, you'll get the rest of your payment and we never speak again. Silence filled the room like poison. He's planning to kidnap me, Imani whispered. During the test. Was planning, Daejung corrected. Now that we know, we can prepare. He turned to Ji-yeon, his expression showing nothing. You'll be dealt with later. Take her to the basement. As guards dragged the sobbing woman away, Imani sank onto the sofa, her mind reeling. The test is in 3 days. We can't just not do it. We'll do it here, Daejung said. I'll have Dr. Cho come to the compound. It's not ideal, but it's safer. No. Sung-ho's voice was firm. If we change plans now, he'll know we discovered the leak. Better to go ahead, but with overwhelming force. Let him try his extraction. We'll be ready. The brothers locked eyes, some wordless communication passing between them. You want to use her as bait, Daejung said flatly. I want to end this threat permanently. Sung-ho looked at Imani. Marcus won't stop. You know that. Even if we chase him out of Seoul, he'll come back. Keep trying, unless we deal with him decisively. Meaning kill him, Imani said. Meaning neutralize the threat in whatever way proves necessary. Sung-ho's expression softened. I know you cared about him once. But those babies, my potential children, my brother's potential children, they deserve to be born into safety, not with a stalker planning kidnapping attempts. Daejung moved to the window, his back rigid with tension. If we do this, if we use the test as an ambush, we need everything perfect, overwhelming force, no possibility of him actually succeeding in taking her. Agreed. And if something goes wrong? Imani asked. If he does manage to grab me? He won't, both brothers said simultaneously. The unity in their voices should have been comforting. Instead, it highlighted how completely her life was now controlled by these two men. Even when they disagreed about everything else, they agreed on keeping her. What if I don't want to be bait? She asked quietly. What if I just want to do the test safely and find out which babies belong to which father? Daejung turned to face her. Then Marcus remains a threat, keeps planning, keeps trying. Eventually he might succeed. Is that the risk you want to take with my children? Our children, Sung-ho corrected. Potentially. The distinction seemed important to both of them. Imani stood, moved to stand between them, her hand on her growing bump. Fine. We do the test as planned. We set the trap. But I want to say in what happens afterward. Regarding Marcus? Daejung asked. Regarding everything. The test results, custody, my future, our futures. She looked between them. In 3 days, we'll know which of you is the biological father of which baby, and then we're going to figure out how this actually works. Not as your possession, not as your captive, as partners, equals, or I walk away from both of you and raise these babies alone. The threat was empty. She had no resources, no passport, no real means of escape. But the words needed to be said anyway. Daejung's smile was cold. You think you have that power? I think these babies give me more power than I've ever had before. She met his eyes without flinching. They're the only thing both of you want more than control, so yes, I have power now. The question is whether you're smart enough to recognize it. Sung-ho laughed softly. She's right, you know. We've been so focused on claiming her, we forgot she gets a vote in this. She doesn't? Daejung started. She does, Sung-ho interrupted. Whether you admit it or not. Those babies are her body, her sacrifice, her risk. She deserves a say in what happens next. The brothers stared at each other, years of rivalry and blood and complicated loyalty flowing between them. Finally, Daejung nodded once. Fine, after the test, after we deal with Marcus. We negotiate terms. Agreed, Sung-ho said. Imani felt something shift in her chest. Not freedom, not yet, but the first small crack in the cage that had held her. 3 days, she said. 3 days until we find out who's the father of which baby.